Welcome back. I think there is also something on the chat box because of
Yes, chat
Alan's.
box, lot of questions have come up.
Yeah, we'll go through that. We'll go through that. So one is what is this? Oh, there are quite a lot.
Yes.
So Amit says contractual scope of work can be in tune with the market conditions. Absolutely right. Ultimately, it is the business model which dictates our hiring as well as, when we would want to probably expand or contract the workforce, that's absolutely fine. And then being limited to contractual terms or compliance is an audit approach, certainly. And then what else? Priyanka did speak about that the millennial population that they deal with. And then Vandana says engagement is about much more roles, challenges, networking. And it is good that Anupriya also shared that NTPC also does a pulse survey daily. That's good. So I think RPWD, I think it is one of you have also replied, rights of persons with disabilities. That's right. Then yes, good. I think you are also into those e-vouchers. That's good. We are the first PSU to come up with a human rights policy. I think that's great. And Vandana also asks, how do we bridge the gap between the document and the actual implementation? More about it when we go into tomorrow's session of understanding the key factors as well as the understanding the organization. We will talk about it. Is it possible to cover during the site visit? How much to cover? Believe me, whatever we have, it is very difficult to cover 100% during the site visit. So at some point of time, we need to do a prioritization. So we will share with you as to how do we do the prioritization, how much can we really look into, what are the absolute necessities that we must need to look into during a site visit. More about it after some time we will discuss that. So let's get into criterion 5 now. So criterion 5 is HRM processes and practices. Now here it talks about, as I said, other than the processes connected with leadership, strategy, L&D, people well-being and engagement and strategy. I mean, more or less all the others will come into it. You will see that shortly. Now over here, I will skip the first two questions. I will speak about it after I speak about all the others because here we need to understand a little bit more. There will also be a small interaction when we try to understand points A and B. Let me start from C. It says, how does the organization manage the processes of manpower planning, recruitment, and career planning? One of the first things that you will also see over here is this point number C speaks about 3 processes. So it doesn't mean that just because there is a question and in one question you have to answer 3. No, not really. You can, because manpower planning itself is a different process. Recruitment is a different process. Career planning is a different process. Career planning, maybe you might have spoken about it to some extent in criterion 3 in L&D because you have talked about something to do with maybe as a part of the talent management, etc. There you might, as a part of the L&D roadmap, you might have already talked about career planning. So you can adequately cross-link it so that you don't try to write the same thing over and again. Next, let us come to manpower planning and recruitment. Now, when we say manpower planning, what is it that you must present over here is we are trying to look at what is the HR strategy of the organization with respect to staffing. Now, for example, the business is growing. While the business is growing, the headcount can certainly come down, right? Possible or not? Or what is ideal? What is ideal? Something on the chat or somebody can open up.
So with more automation, it's possible. With more automation,
Yes.
the headcount can go down.
Headcount can go down. So it is not necessary, absolute necessity that manpower planning would mean because there is a growth in the business, the headcount also should grow. Not really. It could grow or it could come down or it could be because of organic, inorganic. There are so many things. So ultimately what is being talked about over here is you need to align the HR manpower planning strategy to the business strategy. How is it that you are doing it? And then the associated with it, what is it that is important to you? How do you manage recruitment or career planning? Now, what is the dwell? How much of thing you need to probably expand? Let me try to take some 2 examples over here itself. Now, when we are looking at, let us say, an organization like NTPC, how many people does NTPC recruit in a year? Some average numbers.
Around
Or does it
1,000.
happen every year, or due to natural attrition, or what is just the number? Just I am asking for a ballpark figure.
Around 1,000.
Around 1,000 get inducted every year across the entire spectrum of NTPC, all the different business units, right?
Yes.
Good. So it is around 1,000. Let us say we try to take a traditional manufacturing industry. Let's say we are trying to talk about a company that is into an engineering industry. How many people may get recruited in a year? Let's say a company is manufacturing turbines. It could be L&T or it could be Triveni or whatever. I'm just trying to pick up something that is much more closer to you. How many people may they pick up in a year? Of course, it is based on their business strategy, no doubt. But what I'm asking is just for a few comparators, I'm just asking this question. How many? 10, 15, 20? Any answers? Okay, let me answer that for you. While in NTPC, you are taking somewhere around 1,000 people. Maybe in a typical engineering organization, maybe the recruitment, if you are looking at it, may not cross 20 or 25 in a year. Now, let us take one more example. Now, let's go back to Vandana. Let's go back to Priyanka. Priyanka, how many people do you recruit in a year?
In a year, it will be around 20,000.
How does that sound to all of you? How does that sound to all of you? 20,000.
It's a very large number. We cannot foresee such kind of recruitment in our company.
I'm sure you would never have seen such sort of a recruitment in large numbers, right? Now that is where as assessors you must understand the business. Now why I just paused over here is, when you look at recruitment and career planning, while Priyanka has to slog for getting in the numbers for sustaining the business, but career planning is not at all a headache for her. It is something like just now, as we are in the monsoon season, Maharashtra releases 1 lakh cusecs, Karnataka releases 1 lakh cusecs. So people keep coming in, people keep going out. So people don't come there for a career. It is more something like a stopgap arrangement for them. At the same time, that is what the business also needs, because they don't need people who will stick on for the organization. Then they will have productivity issues. They will have career planning issues. So career planning is not a key process in a BPO, but attrition management and recruitment is a key process. If I am right, Priyanka, the maximum number of people you will have is in your recruitment and exit management, right?
That is true. That is true. Recruitment is the maximum.
And also even your training or your L&D department also.
Compared to
Training.
recruitment, it's less. But yes, in training, because after recruitment, immediately they go for functional
Training.
training. Yes.
So this is where all of you must understand that depending upon the company to which you are going, the relative importance of that process is different. While in NTPC, career planning is very, very important because people stay there for many long years and there is an aspiration. But in her company, it is not so. Similarly, when you say recruitment here, her stakeholders will be her main stakeholders that she needs to manage is with that external interface wherein they supply those people by those huge numbers. So, but whereas in this thing, it may not. So we need to look at the relative importance and give it that space what it deserves when you are trying to elaborate on that process. Just because you are heading a particular process, do not get too very, I would say saying that अरे मेरे process के लिए जगह ही नहीं, I need to explain so much, etc. Don't go by that. Then it says describe policies, practices of organization for socially or economically challenged sections of the society, PWDs, and management of diversity and inclusion in recruitment. Now, as NTPC, you can do justice to this. Any other sector can do justice to this. But maybe Priyanka may not be able to do great justice to this requirement of the criterion. She might only be able to do at maximum is some cosmetic justice to that. Again, because of the sector. So try to understand the sector, try to understand the business and see to what extent an organization can display excellence given their particular gamut of operations. Next, when we go into E, what does the other questions talk about? It says, how does a performance management system encourage and support and empower individuals and teams to enable a high performance culture? Now here it is trying to talk about both of them. In any organization, this is true. One is you need to have both team-based working as well as the individual-based working. So you need to have improvement initiatives or engagement initiatives, both for individuals as well as for the groups. So how do you make your organization a high-performing organization? I think this is a fair statement. All organizations want to be efficient. Everybody wants to probably put in their best foot forward. And the second thing is, it says, how does PMS process designed for the people, how does it give you a real-time feedback? Now, this is a very aspirational statement because it is also saying that how do you provide real-time feedback? There are many few organizations who really provide real-time feedback, and that is where the model is also looking at being futuristic. So again, if we are not able to do this, don't think that अरे कुछ तो criteria में दिया हुआ है, कुछ तो लिखना पड़ेगा, let us try to write something. Maybe that may not be needed. The intention is to move from a yearly to a half yearly to a maybe once in a quarter or maybe once in a month. It is more of the counseling and the other things which are also there, which slowly gets intertwined so that that performance management system or that appraisals really do not become a sort of a, I would say, something that people really despise with. So how is it that you are trying to enable or balance and bring in that element of high performance management by various initiatives? Next, the total rewards approach is something that is gaining ground today. And how is it that you are trying to cover all the category of people? Because everybody is working for you. So you may have differently crafted strategies, but how is it that you are also trying to look at the R&R policy to make sure that it encompasses everyone? That is what is the point in this F. Next, it talks about how does the organization gather information on the communication needs? How do you respond to your people? Maybe it could be town halls or it could be instant small, get-togethers just to share something. Again, it all depends upon your work environment. It depends upon the type of service or production that you are into. So it's a little bit different. And then also, what are the various channels or practices deployed to promote the dialogue internally within the company so that there is always a channel of communication? Again, very, very highly customized. And the last one, this is where I said knowledge management. In the previous one, I was also connecting it to L&D in the criterion 3, the last but one question. So here it says, what are the processes that are deployed to gather, consolidate, and share knowledge amongst in the organization? Now, when you say knowledge management, this is a different subject altogether. There are many companies which follow formal knowledge management frameworks or models also. Just like how there is an HR excellence model, there is a customer excellence model, there is a business excellence model. Similarly, there is also a knowledge management model as well. So it speaks quite a lot about what is it that you need to do if you need to become a knowledge organization. And it is all the more important for organizations the like of maybe the likes of an NTPC, BEL or a BHEL, where there are people, who have spent their lifetime, though they know anything and everything about it. So how do you make sure that you're able to tap that knowledge and make sure that is shared across all the people? It is not about just trying to say, "Hey, we have got a portal, we put all the Kaizens." It is not about just dumping some data. It is about data mining. It is about how does really, if you have a knowledge management system in place, one is you must not have repeated complaints. One is it must bring down your cycle time for development of a new product or a new service, due to which there is something that is built upon the knowledge that is already put in by somebody else. There are organizations which incentivize knowledge management. Anything that you put into, or anything that somebody reads whatever you have put into, then you will get rewarded. So there is also an incentivization for knowledge management that many organizations do. And this is certainly a growing area. There are many organizations that are doing some real good job. So slowly the HR management practice is also trying to put in this knowledge management system also as one of the major process. Now let us go into this A and B, which is a very, I would say, an important one to understand, or it talks about the backbone of any process management system. So let's get into the first question. It says, describe the architecture of your HR processes. How are the key processes identified? How are processes designed, developed, managed, and improved? Let us try to look into each one of the points. First one, it says, describe the architecture of the HR processes. So one question to all of you, how many HR processes do you have in NTPC? All put together, give me a number. Maybe you can share. Also our friends from JK Finner, Connect, please, all of you, please do share. How many processes do you have? Overall.
Shiva?
Yes, no, yes, only HR. That's right.
Some, you can say exit process, recruitment process, grievance handling process. We have CFT as a process. We also have PMS as a process. We something have an internal application which is called People Management Award. That is a process for us.
So how do all put together, how many numbers? Now I think Akif is saying around
15 to 16 if I can remember now.
Okay, you say around 15 to 16. Yes. And Ikranil says around 50 plus. And then our friends from NTPC say it is between 50 to somewhere out close to around 80.
I think I'm Chandramouli. I have a different view on this. I think HR processes will be similar in most organizations, the number of processes. Like you start with, say, attracting talent. So how are you recruiting people? Then about engagement, what are the various processes you use for engaging people? So then similarly, retention ke liye what are you doing? Reward and recognition ke liye what are you doing? The broad boxes will be the same across organizations, I think. The various initiatives that are there are a lot of initiatives for each of these processes to further strengthen these processes. This is what I feel. So a lot of when people are saying
initiative you are right. Initiative need not be a process. Yes, please. Somebody else wants to share. Please go ahead.
Sir, can you define what is the process?
Okay. Let me try to simplify it more from a model perspective itself. So then I think you will also be able to get a more or less a correct answer. Now this HR excellence model, what we have, ideally these 5 processes would cover anything and everything in HR, correct now? Because it is a generic model that is applicable for all of you. Now when we say leadership, what are some of the processes, HR related processes in leadership? It could be role modeling. It could be succession planning. It could be, let us say, it could be visioning. It could be communication. It could be leadership effectiveness. So just in leadership, we got around 5. If you go to L&D, similarly, there will be another 3 or 4, 5, like for example, talent management. If you break it down into level 2, maybe there are talent attraction, talent management, or probably talent retention, or it could be training and development, or it could be training effectiveness. When you're looking at a strategy, it could be the very first question. Yesterday when we went to the model, it was talking about external inputs. It was trying to talk about how do you manage your entire HRMS system, or risk management could be a process. We come to well-being, running an ESAT, that itself is a process. So when we are trying to look into criterion 1, 2, 3, and 4, now while we are in 5 over here, we went into this point number C, right? Now, manpower planning is a process, recruitment is a process, induction is a process, career planning is a process, mobility is a process, knowledge management is a process. So broadly, I'm just trying to take an average. Even if we think that this model is at level 1, leadership is level 1 process, strategy is level 2, L&D is level 3, criterion 4 is level 4. If there are 5 processes at level 1, when you break it down into the sub processes, maybe there will be more than 5 or 6 in each one of them. So the grand total might come to somewhere around 30 or 40, or in case if there are some things that are very, very specific to you, it might even go to somewhere around 50. So broadly, let us assume that there are some 50 HR processes. Now let's try to understand the second point. It says, how are the key processes identified? Now, how do you define a key process? Anybody? How do you define a key process? What is the definition of a key process? How do you define a key process? Any answers?
So anything which directly impacts our operations?
No. Currently, now please let us try to look at from an HR angle. So you're right. Augustine says that has a maximum impact on the business results. Ziaur says it is a process that connects your HR strategy to the business. And then Shubhadeep says something that directly impacts a key result area. Fair enough. So if you are trying to take the essence of this, if you have around 40 or 50 processes, and key has to be something that is filtered out of it. So you need to have a filter. Now, let me try to bring the analogy of a key and a master key. In a hotel, there are 100 rooms. Let us say in one floor, there are 50 rooms. The supervisor or the housekeeping boy or whoever it is, he will have one master key. So out of the 50 rooms, he has got one master key. So likewise, when you say that you have got 50 processes, out of which, what are the key processes? Now, the definition of a key process is something that is connected with your strategy. Since we are trying to talk here about an HR excellence model, we are more worried about the HR processes that are key. Processes that are central to the HR strategy of the organization is what is called as a key process. So, if you have got 50, ideally how many key processes should be there? Management logic says, if at all, if you need to define something as a key process, it must not get into double digits. 9 is the maximum. But even having 9 is not an absolute necessity. You must not have more than 4 or 5. Or even if you would want to have a higher number based on the complexity of the number of processes what you have, it must not exceed 9. Because if you are saying that every process is important, then what is the relevance or the definition of a key process? Then the key process will lose its sanctity. So to repeat, key process means key process is a process that is connected with your business plus as well as HR strategy. Mainly since this is an HR excellence model, we are trying to look at how is it connected to the HR strategy. The processes that have got the maximum impact on the realization of the HR strategy are the ones that are called as the process that are linked to that are called as key HR processes. If you have got a key HR process, then it delivers a key result. So the analogy goes like this. There is a key process, there is a key result. There is a key HR process, and then there is a key HR result. And ideally, as I said, it must not go into double digits. Then this also is connected with something to do with the, I would say, criteria, not criteria, because of these assessments, the word criteria always comes in. Even in our ISO 9000, there is something called as category 4. It speaks about what is the design of the quality management system. So here also it is the same. If you have got recruitment, if you have got induction, career planning, mobility, this, that, blah, blah, there are so many people who are looking after each one of the processes. What is the job of the process owner? The job of the process owner is to design the process, develop the process, manage the process, as well as improve the process. So first thing is, if you have a process, you must have a process owner. The job of the process owner is to design, develop, manage, and improve the process. What is the job of the HR strategy team? While you have so many processes, you need to look at what is your HR strategy. What are those 6 or 8 or 10 most important things what you are set up for the current year? If you need to achieve that, on which processes you need to have a hold. So the processes that are linked to that will become the key processes. So analogy is like this. You put all your 50 processes into a funnel, put a sieve or a filter. The filter should contain something on your values, something on your culture, something on the key HR challenges, and something on the business challenges. And when you apply this logic or this filter of 4 or 5, then what gets distilled out is some 6 or 8 processes. Those are your key processes. Key process will give your key HR results. That is what the logic of point number A. Next, let's go to the second one. This has got a connect to whatever we spoke yesterday on the lead and lag indicators. How does the organization monitor and measure the performance of the key HR processes? How is technology also leveraged to enhance the effectiveness of the key HR processes to deliver outstanding experience to the people? Let us take the first portion of it. If you have a process, the process is supposed to have a lag and a lead indicator. If you have a lag and a lead indicator, over a period of time, it will throw the data. It will be an attrition trend, or it might be the trend of the number of learning hours, or it can be number of improvement projects, or it might be the cost reduction, whatever. Anything and everything, any process will have a lag or a lead indicator. Once you start measuring it, then it gives you a trend that will tell you what is the health of the process. So look at that health of the process and make sure that you are able to keep it perfectly fine in the pink of health. Next, also today, more or less, I think everybody is using technology, but this question is just to make sure that you also need to leverage technology so that you know how are your key HR processes and how are they being perceived by your people, so that you are also able to give a good experience to the people in terms of being a very responsible and a very agile organization. That is what is the point in A and B. So this is about criterion 5. So with criterion 1 and 2, point number A and B being very, very important, which talks about how is the process architecture of HR, how is it defined, how many processes do you have, what is your logic of identifying something as a key process, and how do you continue to monitor, measure, manage, and improve all the processes, including key process. That was what was the point in A and B. So that was about criterion 5. Quickly, let's go to criterion 6. So I think there was also a question here from Amit. Now, Amit, when you say what is a process? Process is what? Process is any activity in which one is there is a supplier, there is an input, there is a processing, whatever you do goes out to the next process, and there is also an outcome. And also when you would want to define the characteristics of a process is something that is standardized, that is something that you need to be able to do it in the same way at all points of time, and it must give you a consistent and there should be a systematic way of running it, and it must also give you consistent and predictable results. That is what process management is all about. When you say I've got a process, it means there is a certain way of doing things. There are boundary conditions for a process. The process has got an input, it has got certain resources, there is a certain way of processing, and the output, whatever comes out, is aligned to the requirements of the next process, which is your customer. A process is supposed to be stable, it is supposed to be standardized, it is also supposed to deliver regular and it is supposed to give you a consistent output at all points of time, irrespective of whoever does it. That is what we call as a process management approach. Next, let us go to criterion 6. 6, we had the 20-20, right? T20. 20 for lead and 20 for lag. Very, very simple. 400 to 200 points for the lag indicators, 200 for the lead indicators. When we say lag, it means people's perception of the organization's processes, essentially your ESAT, your employee satisfaction survey results, etc., which have a weightage of close to around 60% in this, because it's an HR excellence model. Ultimately, it is your people. At the same time, depending upon your business model, how your people are perceived by the customers, partners, community, society, etc., as appropriate, that may also have a small bearing on this. And how do you gather perceptions? Perceptions can be gathered by either surveys, or it can be in terms of dipstick, or it can be in terms of complaints, compliments, testimonial, feedback, maybe messages, newspaper clippings, etc. All these are good examples of getting perception measures. For example, you go to a GPTW, you go to a Deloitte, you go to a Eon Event. All these are what? These are all perception measures. So perceptions, what is it that you need to present? You need to present people and the stakeholder perceptions on whatever is applicable under the processes of criterion 1, because strategy is not perception, no? Strategy is hard reality, because we are going to achieve outcomes. So that's the reason strategy is not over here. But there can be perceptions on leadership, L&D, criterion 4 on well-being, engagement, as well as many of the other processes that impact the employee life cycle, and also how customers and the other ones also, how do they perceive your people. So this is what is 6A. 6B, I told you, is lead indicators. Lead indicators associated with the same 4 or 5 things, whatever are there in the previous one, the same thing holds good. Let me give you some examples. What can be a lead indicator in the leadership criterion? Lead indicator could be number of town hall addresses that CEO or the MD has made. Number of times that he has come over to give some reward or recognitions. It could be in the number of people whom he is coaching or he is mentoring. This could all be good lead indicators for you. Now, learning and development. What is the lead indicator? Number of training hours, number of new programs that have been developed, or it can be number of people who have been identified as maybe as HiPods as a part of talent management. That can also be a lead indicator. Well-being, engagement, involvement. We had, let us say, 60% participation in the improvement activity. We had over 1,000 suggestions. We have over 50 active QCCs. All these are good lead indicators. So similarly, a number of customers, whom our people have gone and interacted, 50 in a month. That can be a good lead indicator. So both you will have lead as well as lag indicators. More about the lead and lag. Also, when we get into the BPCL case study, you will have plenty of indicators on which you will understand. You will also write. We will also do an exercise. Yeah, Mujtaba, you are saying that is it necessary to have a lead and a lag indicators for each of the process? Yes. Any process should have a metric. You must endeavor to find a lead. See, for many of them, you may not have a lag indicator, but lead indicator certainly has. Each and every process will have a lead indicator. Lag indicators, the same indicators may be distributed across many, but your endeavor must be to find out a lead and a lag, because or else you won't be able to understand the cause and effect relationship. That is the reason why indicator.
Sure. My question was actually, do you need to have lead as well as lag? As in, I can just have either a lead or a lag or both for some of the processes, but for few of the processes, I might only have just lead indicators. So is it okay to that?
Possible,
right?
Certainly right. There are few indicators on which there may not be any lag. You may have only a lead, but that may influence some other lag indicator. That is very much possible.
Correct. Okay. That's just what I want to ask. I mean, not necessarily both things put together is what I wanted to ask.
No. It is not that it is mandatory. At few places, you may not have a lag indicator for something.
Correct. Thank you.
Yeah. And okay, there is also something called as a 3-year trend for targets and comparisons. We will discuss about it when we get into the OPEL portion of it. That we will try to address it separately. Now, the next topic is, now we have gone through this. Whatever we are left with, one is the OPEL portion of it. That is the heart of the model. Then we also need to run through the activity, whatever you have done, and some of the quality of the statements, whatever is written, so that you are able to do a much better activity tomorrow. So next we will try to go through those. Now I will quickly take you through the OPEL. Why I am saying quickly is this is a very important concept, but we will be revisiting this time and again. Starting from today, daily we will only be talking about this for the next 3 days. That is the reason why I said that I will talk about it very, very briefly, only in macro level inputs. More finer inputs tomorrow, day after tomorrow, until Friday we will go on. Now I don't want you to concentrate on the right hand portion of it at all. Don't look into that 0, 25, 50. All this is for scoring. We will come to it on day 4 or day 5. Currently our focus should only be on the left hand side. Now what I want you to look at is there are 2 OPELs. Let me try to take you back to the courseware. Now, what is this OPEL? Just now we discussed about key process identification. So the tenets of process management and how do we identify key processes? All these definitions are given. So let us get into the OPEL. Now, what is OPEL? OPEL is an acronym for Outcomes, Process, Evaluation and Learning. Outcomes is what? The final HR outcomes, whatever you are wanting to. Now, if you want an outcome, how is it that you will do? You need to have a process. And once you have a process, if the process needs to mature, it needs to be evaluated, it all needs to be measured, and it also needs to be improved. So that is the reason why we have christened an acronym called as OPEL. Those of you who have attended the previous workshops a few years back, we were using the word of a radar. Result, approach, deployment, assessment, and refinement. Here also the logic is the same, but the acronym is different. So the acronym goes by OPEL. Outcome, Process, Evaluation, and Learning. Now, the 6-box HR excellence model has got enablers, they have got results. It says enablers drive results. So there are 5 enablers, there is a result. There is 6A and 6P, which is a result. You have got criterion 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which are the enablers. So there is an OPEL for enablers, there is an OPEL for results. So the OPEL, the enabler OPEL, you must use it only for criterion 1 to 5. The result OPEL, you must use it only for criterion 6A and 6B. Now let us try to go through this in detail. What do we mean by this OPEL? What is the use of it? How do we make use of this in enhancing the robustness of the HR process, as well as how do we go about trying to do the scoring? We will try to understand both of them. Now, yeah. So I hope the screen is visible on the enabler Opel. Whatever is there in the model booklet, it is the same thing. It is no different. If you have the model booklet, blue book in front of you, it is the same, no different. Now let us try to look at understanding at the macro level. Whenever you are assessing a process, you need a tool. Or when you would want to design a process, you need some logic. So the Opel gives you the logic. Now, whenever you are trying to discuss about an Opel, we discussed about so many processes, recruitment, induction, performance management, role modeling, employee satisfaction process, improvement initiatives, maybe performance management system, communication, anything and everything is a process. So if you need to design a process well, you need to apply the Opel onto it. How do we apply the Opel? Now this is what we call as an enabler Opel. So the enabler Opel has mainly 3 elements. What are the elements? The element is approach, deployment. The third one is evaluation and learning. It is called as A, D, E and L. If a process is to be termed as excellent, approach should be excellent, deployment should be excellent, evaluation and learning also should be excellent. Let's say we were talking about communication. If the communication process is, if we are assessing the communication process for its excellence, the approach has to be good, the implementation has to be good, evaluation learning has to be good. Now, how do we qualify that the approach is good? For that, there are certain attributes. Now, what you are seeing is those 3 bullets. If you need to define the approach, if you need to say approach is excellent, first of all, it must have a clear logic based on the stakeholder needs and expectations. Meaning to say that in this particular case, our employees are our stakeholders, management is a stakeholder. So whatever you design, any HR process, let us say we are trying to talk about the L&D process. We are trying to talk about training process. First of all, the process must have a clear logic. It must meet the stakeholders. It must be based on the stakeholders' needs and expectations. Then it must also be aligned to the business strategy. If it is aligned to the business strategy, it has a higher level of maturity. It can also be linked to many other approaches. Now, L&D process can also be linked to career development. Career development can also be linked to, let us say, your reward and recognition process. There are many. So whenever you are designing an initiative, whenever you are looking at a process, you must also look at its interface with the other processes as appropriate. Now, Amit asked a question. What is process management? If you are saying that something is a process, one is it must be systematic. It must be measurable. It must be repeatable. It must be scalable. So if the process answers all these questions, it is supposed to be excellent with respect to the approach. Approach means, in simple non-jargon words, what is the quality of design? What is the quality of your thinking? Similarly, when you say deployment, what is deployment? Deployment means, simple terms, it is implementation. What is the quality of implementation? Quality of implementation is supposed to be excellent when approach is consistently implemented in all the areas. When implementation is systematic and it is in a planned manner. Then implementation has the ability to absorb changes. Let us say we are trying to talk about performance management system. Performance management system is consistently implemented in all the potential areas. It is implemented for refinery, it is implemented for retail, it is also implemented for maybe the LPG bottling plant. Implementation is systematic and is executed in a planned manner and is also measurable. So the performance management system is systematic, and also it is made sure that we have also made a customization that it is applicable for management staff, non-management staff, and also for the officer category. When you say implementation is systematic and executed in a planned manner, first year we started off for this category, second year this, now we have been able to cover everyone. So there is also a roadmap for implementation. Implementation framework has the ability to absorb changes. So if there is another new category of people coming in, I won't change the entire PMS framework. I would have designed in such a way that the approach is also a little bit flexible. The implementation will also take care of some of the challenges that I undertake. So it means whenever I am designing something, I don't design it in a watertight compartment. When I am implementing it, I also look at the practical challenges and try to design it in such a way that it is customized and it meets the requirements of the different employee segments. If it answers all these questions, then it means that deployment is excellent. Third point, evaluation and learning. So here, what we are trying to look at is, here we are trying to talk about approach. Here we are trying to talk about deployment. Here we are trying to talk about evaluation and learning. ADEL, this is what is ADEL. Now, if evaluation and learning has to be excellent, then it needs to address the below mentioned 3 points. What are those? The first says that approach and its deployment are regularly measured and improved for effectiveness and efficiency. If there is an approach, if there is a deployment, then you must have some indicators to know that it is going on the right track. So both approach and deployment, both of them should be measurable, meaning to say that you must have lead and lag indicators where it is feasible, where it is appropriate. Internal and external learnings are used. We already discussed this during that lead and lag. So if you have got some measures, then you must look at what is the trend and what is the message it is giving. So you must have both internal as well as external learnings as triggers for improvement. The third one, once you have the trigger, you must go ahead and then improve that process. As simple as that. So approach, deployment, E&L. A, D, E, and L, all the three of them are good, then it means that that entire process is termed to be excellent. Whether you are trying to talk about a recruitment or a induction or a communication or PMS or any process, the thought, the quality of the design of that process should be good. The implementation should also be good. And at the same time, the evaluation learning should also be good. Now, this is where the gap is. No company can do justice to all these attributes of excellence. कहीं ना कहीं पे कुछ तो थोड़ा बहुत gap होगा. That is what you must bring out as an OFI. If whatever are being done well on all these areas, those become a strength. If something is not being done well in these areas, then it becomes an OFI. Now you could have said that, अरे ये सब इतना attributes क्यों? Approach, deployment, whether is there initiative, whether is it being done, whether is it being measured. ये तीनों काफी है ना, that is good enough. If you are only going to look at a macro level, everything will look like only strengths. Then there is no depth of the process. This is what is the difference between an audit and an assessment. In an audit, we only look at whether something is there or not. But in an assessment, we are looking at the quality of the approach. We are looking at the quality of implementation. We are looking at the quality of that evaluation and learning. That is why this is called as a maturity tool. This is where I said that this tool is at a much higher level than the PDCA. That is what differentiates the PDCA from the OPEL. So any process, what we are going to assess from criterion 1 to 5, we must make use of the enabler OPEL. Any criteria that we use to assess 6A and 6B, there we need to use the result OPEL. Let me quickly get into the result OPEL also. Same thing, Joe, whatever I have told now, the same thing is listed over here. Now, when do you say review? Review means at least you must have some metrics. You must have regular reviews. You must have some indicators. You must have perceptions. If these are all there, then it means that there is an evidence of review. When you say learning and improve, then you must learn from those external and internal triggers, and then you must improve. That is what is that E and L. That is what is that learning and improvement. Let's go into the result OPEL also. Result OPEL is applicable only for 6A and 6B. Yesterday, what you have tried is a small exercise on the enabler OPEL. Today evening, you will re-look at whatever you have done in the enabler OPEL. I will tell you what are the gaps in which whatever you have done. Based on the understanding of this OPEL now, you will do a much better exercise. Now let us continue to the result OPEL. Result OPEL mein there are two elements. The first element is called as relevance and usability. The second element is called as performance. Now, when you say relevance and usability, what is the meaning? The word relevance would mean, first of all, are you measuring something that matters to you? Are you measuring something that is relevant and linked to the process or not? That is what is relevant. If you are measuring it, then are you making use of it? Are you making use of it in the strategy? Are you making use of it for your operations? So, any metric, whatever you are using, it should pass the test of relevance and usability. So if relevance and usability is excellent, is supposed to be termed as excellent, it must meet these 2 points. It says scope of the results presented cover all the important parameters with the associated lead and lag indicators. Then it says results are also segmented, timely and accurate. Any results, first of all, you must measure what matters to you. Second thing is, if something matters to you, then you must also be making use of it. Next is, whatever results you have, they must be sliced and diced so that you are able to make use of them. Similarly comes performance. When we say performance, now here the relevance and usability is more about the breadth of the result. Here, when we are saying performance, performance means we are trying to talk about the depth of the results. So we are saying trend. Whenever you are looking at performance in any result, we look at a 3-year trend. Trends are beneficial or sustained. Good performance is seen for the last 3 years. So we need to look at how are the trends for the 3 years, last 2 years plus the current year. Similarly, we also look at targets. Now here in targets and comparisons, there are two very important things. It says targets are set for the key results. Targets are available for the comparisons are available for the key results. Just now we discussed about key process, right? So anything and everything that is strategic, the results that are associated with the strategy mandatorily need to have targets. They must also, you must compare yourself with whomever is doing much better. So key results should have targets as well as comparisons. Now there is a last one. It also says causes. Your trend may be good. You might have met your targets also. You might also be doing much better than comparison. The last thing that the assessor should do is, okay, trends are good, comparisons are good, everything is good. But is this happening because of a good back-end process or not? Or are the results just happening by themselves? So he needs to have that conviction because enablers drive the results. So to sum up this short session, which as I said, we will keep going back time and again over the next 3 days. Whenever we are assessing an enabler, any process between criterion 1 to 5, we apply the enabler OPEL. We apply the logic of approach, deployment, evaluation and learning. If approach has to be excellent, it needs to meet these 3 attributes. If the implementation is supposed to be excellent, it must meet these 3 attributes. If evaluation and learning is supposed to be excellent, then it must meet all these 3. Similarly, when we go to the result OPEL, which we use for 6A and 6B, there are 2 things. One is the relevance and usability. Second one is performance. And if the relevance and usability is to be excellent, then the scope of the results must cover the needs and expectations of the stakeholder. Results should be segmented. It should be timely. It should be accurate. Similarly, if performance is supposed to be excellent, you must have good trends for 3 years. You must have met all the targets, and you must have also compared yourself with whoever is the best, and cause and effect relationship should also be established. This is what is a result OPEL and an enabler OPEL. Now let me try to take you through 2-3 examples. All this we'll discuss tomorrow. Let me try to take you through this. Now, whenever you apply for an assessment, what is the outcome of an assessment? The outcome of the assessment is a list of strengths and OFIs. So whenever we are trying to give our strengths and OFIs, as assessors, we must remember that we must use simple language that the applicant will be able to understand. It is not that we must not use the word of we don't see any review, we don't see any evidence of evaluation, learning. Never try to use any jargons. Assume that by default that the person who is reading through the report has not gone through the HR excellence program, and it is not necessary for everybody to go through this program. This program is only for assessors. But people need to know karna kya hai. They need to know what is the actionable. So your statement should be in simple English which people should understand. And there are certain ways of trying to write statements. Let me try to share that. One is whenever you are trying to write statements, the feedback comments must help the applicant to understand what to do and what are the gaps. Always you must use the language of the applicant to communicate. He has used a word assent. He has used a word transcend. He has used a word called as something. So you must use the same words to give confidence to the applicant. हाँ भाई मैं आप ही की application के बारे में बात कर रहा हूँ. It should not be looking like it is a cut copy paste from somebody else. So comments must be supported by facts. Currently, as of now, what we are doing is a desktop assessment. But when you are doing a site visit, you must also use evidences what you have used in the site. You must also use many of the terminologies that have been used in the position report, both of them. While a company may have many OFIs, it all depends upon the maturity of the company. But what we say is whenever you are giving OFIs, give the OFIs which they will be able to act at that level. Meaning to say that for a 550 point company, that quality of OFIs should be different. For a company that is at 400, the OFIs should be different. For a company that is just about starting the journey of HR excellence, which is at around 400, then generally the gaps will be more in the approach. Quality of the design of the initiative will not be great. So your focus should be on that. For a company that is at a 500 level or 550 level, there will be gaps in some areas. Implementation gaps will be there, or the evaluation and learning may not be all that great. So your focus should be more on that. So look at the maturity of the applicant and then decide what OFI to give. Just because you know the model, just go about trying to give OFIs left, right, and center. Give what the applicant can understand at that point of time. You can't give a 7th standard student a 10th standard question, or you can't give a 12th standard student a question that is there in engineering or something else. So that is what is the analogy here. Now let us try to take 1 or 2 statements of how you have written your statements. Let us try to see and come back to a model statement to understand how to write and how not to write a statement. Well, let me open a few statements now. Okay, I have just put up quite a lot of the strengths and OFIs, whatever many have you have tried to put it up yesterday. First of all, thanks for trying out the exercise. Next, the second thing is, please don't take me wrong when I'm making a few comments. It is because it is all a learning process. First time, nobody will be able to get any statement perfect. There will always be some good things what you have written. There are things that could have been written better. So let us try to run through the do's and don'ts of trying to write an enabler statement. Now, all of you have trying to put up those strengths and OFS, and there is also one mistake over here. My request, please take out this word elements from your template. This is not right. This should be replaced by a word called as key factors. We will discuss about this tomorrow morning session. But for the moment, you just take out the word element. Whatever was typed out was wrong. Now let me run through a few statements. Now, this is one of the strengths of BPCL. Now, this is now first of all, you must have used the enabler template. Now, this template is for the results. This is SIS, this is scope, integrity, segmentation, performance by trend, target, comparison, cause and effect. But whereas we have enabler के लिए एक और है, approach, deployment, E&L. That is sound, integrated, implemented, systematic, measurement, learning, improvement. So you need to use the format for the enabler. So you must not use the result one. Now the first one over here, let us say segmented indicators. Oh, sorry, I think Priyanka, you have done both the exercises. I think I have taken the result one, correct now? Priyanka?
That is correct. That is correct.
So, sorry, I have taken the result one. Sorry, I will open up the other ones. Maybe so I'll use this for the results one a little bit later. So let me go into the other ones. Now here, one of our friend, now you have written a strength and OFI for BPCL criteria 2. Now, criterion 2 there are close to 6 or 7 questions. External gathering of information, internal indicators, something on risk management, something on the scorecard development. They have given around 4 to 5 pages of information, and the criteria also has around 5 to 6 requirements. So we must be able to write a strength and OFI on all the main themes. Ideally, whenever we are trying to write a strength and an OFI, we must always, at a minimum, we must write around 5 strengths and as many OFIs as possible, or else we won't be able to score. Now look at it, criterion requirements are around 6 to 8, but we have given only 2. So we will not be able to do a justice to the scoring. So the minimum thing is we must have minimum 5 strengths and as many OFIs. If not as many, at least 3-4 OFIs तो होना ही चाहिए, or else then you will have to give 100 out of 100. So the first lesson is there must be a balance between strengths and OFIs. Minimum number is 5 at least for strengths, because criterion 2 at least has around 6 to 7 points. Model booklet itself has A, B, C, D, E, F, and the courseware में जो presentation जो है उसमें there are at least around 4 to 5 theme headings. So पांचों में एक तो strength होगा, कोई ना कोई तो OFI होगा ही. Now there is another sample over here. Now here it says applicant collates the aspects of the external environments and ecosystem while formulating the strategy. Now this is a strength, no doubt. We are not disputing that it is not a strength. But what is the quality of the inputs he is gathering? Utna kuch likha hai na, he is saying I'm using Hay, I'm using Gartner, I'm using NHRD, I'm using CII, I'm using so many different things. So we need to put what is the quality of the inputs what he is using. So यहाँ पे जो है ना, this is very very generic. ये generic को हमें specific बनाना है. We need to explain and expand our words so that this generic thing becomes very very specific. Only then we will be able to assess the quality of the statement. If not, then this will become very, very superficial. And one more thing is, even though yesterday I had not told you, because I thought let us go by a stage wise doing this thing. Whenever you are trying to write an OFI, ideally you should always write, I would say, a new OFI. Don't write the strength and OFI in the same column. You cut this and put this across over here. So your OFI should be separate, your strength should be separate, right? So you just element nikalo up, you just say this is strength, this is your OFI. So OFI and strength, both of them should be written separately. This is the second learning. First is from generic, we need to make it specific. Next, we must have at least around 5 strengths and 3-4 OFIs. Here the learning is strength in a different row and OFIs in a different row. And next one is, it is not clear how HR participates in gathering inputs for formulation of the HR strategy. While the reactive measure is how HR took major transfers after the methodology is not clear. Now, why we must not comment on the restructuring portion of it. Now, organizational restructuring will come as a part of criterion 1 in leadership or somewhere else. In criterion 2, our focus should only be on how is the entire HR strategy formulation process taking place. What external inputs are they gathering? How are they using internal performance indicators? How are they developing the scorecard? Are there targets and comparisons? Have the objectives been de-risked? Whether the the entire HR strategy management, whether has it been improved or not. These are the points. इन points में हमको strength of OFI लिखना चाहिए. So we must not get into applicant may write whatever you want. That leave it. You look at what is the criterion requirement. You look at what is, in case if he has written something that is not applicable, आप छोड़ दो. Don't write on that. Or if he has written on the strategy criterion somewhere else, take that input and make use of it. So only whatever is relevant to the criterion requirement, only on that we need to write the strength or the OFI. That is one learning. Okay. And next is another important learning is, even though we will go into a few others also, let us say, let's get into the next one. So here BPCL tries to understand the business environment, customer needs and translate the same into HR strategy. HR strategy is refined through inputs from internal and environment through the various resources. This is what I said. When you said various resources, you must explain what are those various resources. Then it will be much easier for us. So HR, so here I think our friend has written 2 strengths and 1 OFI. Fair enough. Okay, let us go ahead with the next one over here. So again, I think it is very similar. Successfully scans the environment for strategic HR risk and deploys risk mitigation across the identified areas. It is not clear how now. Now, if you look at this now, strengths and OFIs, both of them are there together. Now you are saying that the strength is applicant is scanning the environment for HR risk and he is doing it and deploys the risk mitigation action. And here you are saying that it is not clear how risks are identified. So we are contradicting our own statement. Strength and OFI cannot be contradictory in nature. If you have given a strength, it cannot become a OFI. If it is an OFI, it cannot become a strength. So be very, very clear. So it should not be mixed up. Now let us go to the other one. What does this say? This says that company follows up a bottom-up approach for each SBU getting a feedback. Now look at this. Whatever he has written, the others had not written. So this is a different way of writing. So each one of us will have different insights. That is how tomorrow we will discuss the principle of consensus. Because now what you have done is very elementary work. Today I will tell you how to go about writing it. Then based on that, when you redo this exercise, you will realize that you will be able to write a much better strength or OFI. That is what right now is the process what we are going through. So good, strength and OFIs, both of them are different. But the other point which I also want all of you to remember is, whenever you are trying to write a strength or an OFI, we always say that the language of the assessor is the language of the OPEL. Meaning to say that whenever you want to write a strength or an OFI, you must write one complete paragraph. आपकी मन में जो भी है वो पूरा लिख देना चाहिए आपको कंजूसी नहीं करना है. देयर इज नो वर्ड काउंट. आप 2 लाइन में आप लिख नहीं सकते. Whenever you want to write, you must write a complete sentence ताकि आपके मन में whatever is there, you need to put it across very, very clearly. When you are writing, when I said language of the assessor is approach, deployment, evaluation and learning. अगर आपकी strength अगर पढ़े तो उसमें approach दिखनी चाहिए या deployment दिखनी चाहिए या E&L दिखनी चाहिए. अगर वो नहीं है तो then वो OFI बनेगा. So you must try to use the language of the OPEL to write your statement. So वो language of OPEL क्या होता है, that we will see now within the next 10-15 minutes before we close for the day. Similarly, more or less the same inputs hold good for all of you. And please make sure that whenever we are writing any strength and OFI, it cannot be in one line. At least minimum एक paragraph होना ही चाहिए. It can never be one-liner. One-liners are banned in assessments. Applicant is writing so much, वो इतना कुछ information दे रहा है with diagrams, with this, with that, वो सब. If we are going to write only in one line, so how do we know, or how does the applicant get a confidence that the assessor has observed whatever I am doing? Has he considered everything or not? तो उनके मन में वो शंका रहेगा. So you should always try to write one good, complete paragraph. Right? Now look at it. Restructuring is not talked about in the strategy portion at all. It is not a requirement at all. So we must not try to talk about restructuring at all. Now you look at this. As a part of Project Q6, the company undertook major restructuring and became customer centric. How customer centricity was achieved and assessed is not clear. Now we are assessing the HR strategy. Now HR strategy mein, there was one more point of people becoming customer centric, but we are not assessing customer centricity. We are assessing HR centricity. The focus should be on HR. We should not go beyond the confines of HR. But if people are to be made customer centric for achieving the HR strategy, fine. But you need to look at the context and write your OFI or your strength accordingly. Okay. So again, many of you have written about restructuring. So maybe may not be. And also, I think you have also done some, what do you say? Together, you have sat together and written. Maybe today I would urge you to do it individually. Please do not do this as a group exercise. I'll tell you the reason why. Group exercise is required, but at a different point of time. Because as of now, each one of you will see the business context. You will understand BP Celia in your own way. Because your understanding of the OPEL is different, your understanding is different, of the context is different, your reading might be different. So each one of you will come with your own thought. बाद में, once we complete the individual assessment, then comes the consensus. Consensus में, we try to combine the different viewpoints of all the other people and then come to a common conclusion. अभी हम consensus तक पहुंचे ही नहीं है. So today, when you are redoing this exercise after the inputs that I give, my request is do not collaborate. If you collaborate, then you will not learn. You do the exercise individually. Believe me, you will learn much better and you will also share a lot of individual inputs. And this is what is useful for the consensus. So you will realize that tomorrow when we do this activity once more. Now here at least one good thing is, yes, there is one complete statement. So one paragraph is there. So this is a good way of writing or trying to write a strength. Similarly, यहाँ पे there is one good complete paragraph of writing a OFI. This is also good. But you have written only one OFI and one strength. But there are many requirements in criterion 2. So we must, that is where I said we must try to write at least some 4 or 5 strengths. Now I will also take you through the BPCL document. I will also share with you how to write a good strength and an OFI, based on which you redo this activity. You will do it doubly fast. You will also do a much better job. If today you have taken 2 hours to do it, tomorrow you will take only half an hour, or tonight you will take only half an hour. So now the quality or the maturity of your statements will also become that much better. Let me try to show you how to write a statement. Yes, please. So far, anything? Sorry, it was a long chat, but unfortunately, the way that I need to teach you, I'll need to speak a little bit more. So you will have to bear with me for a few more minutes. Now, let us try to read this statement. Now, read this statement. Now, it meets all the requirements of whatever I told you. Now, this strength is around 5 to 6 lines, a complete paragraph. Hai. It is written in the language of the Opel. I will tell you how. It is not a single one-liner. It is not very generic. It is very, very specific. ये BPCL case study का नहीं है, but it is a very generic one. But let me tell you what is the logic. Now, I told you that a model में the language of the assessor is what? I said it is approach, it is deployment, and then it is E&L. Correct, na? These are what are the elements of excellence. Elements of excellence, when we try to apply the Opel for any of the enabler criterion, is approach, deployment, E&L. Now let us read this statement. You forget that verb, subject, wo sab bhul jaiye. You just read the statement. Applicant understands, gathers and understands employee requirements and their importance through what? Through third-party survey. Now is survey, I want you to open up your mics or maybe even use the chat box. Do you think survey is a good approach to understand the employee requirements and needs and expectations? Is survey an established tool? Is it good enough? So it is a good and an established tool is what Mehul says. Priyanka also says yes. So if we are saying that approach survey is a good tool to elicit employee needs and requirements, then we are taking the approach. There is an approach of using a survey to gather employee needs and expectations. Similarly, the survey is administered biannually to all the 4 employee segments. By whom? By Gallup. So we are also getting a flair of the implementation or the deployment. Who is doing? Gallup is doing. Are all the employees covered? Yes, it covers all the 4 segments. What is the frequency? It is also biannual. So we know the 3W, 1H, who, when, how, all our answers are answered. Where, when, how, who, all those are answered. So it means that deployment is excellent. Next, it also says not only by Gallup as well as by an internal survey that is conducted annually. So the approach is further good because they do external as well as internal, and this they do it biannually, plus even an internal survey is also carried out annually. And he is saying that they also review, by trying to do this, they are also reviewing the employee engagement initiative. So as a part of that E&L, the E is also answered. So only thing is we have not talked about that improvement portion of it. Otherwise, it talks about approach, it talks about deployment, it also talks about measurement. Let me try to break this a little bit further. Now, आपकी जो Excel sheet में दिया गया है ना, उसमें there are certain columns. It says sound, it says integrated. Next for deployment में, it says is it implemented. Next it says is it systematic. E&L में it says is it being measured, and then is there some learning and is there some improvement. This is what is there in the Excel sheet. Now if you are looking at here, we are saying that survey is sound, survey is integrated. What is the power of the survey? Why are they doing a survey? Because it is also linked up to their HR strategy of trying to understand employee needs and expectations. So even integration is okay. It is implemented annually and biannually. It also covers all the employee segments. There is also a process owner, so it is also systematic. There are timelines, etc. Now, the survey throws out lot of data that is already given in criterion 6A. So the survey is also being measured. Only thing is how the survey has been improved is not something what we see. So whenever we try to write a complete paragraph, ये पढ़ने के बाद we must be able to get a feel of what is the quality of approach, what is the quality of the implementation, what is the quality of the E&L. This is what is the language of the OPEL which an assessor should use. Similarly, there is a OFI. OFI देखिए, it says it is not clear how senior leaders interact with the employee segment. The specific participation of senior leaders in numerous employee engagement initiatives like QCC, Gemba visit, town hall, etc. He's giving a lot of examples. He says this is not clear. So this is an OFI. OFI के लिए भी we have got, let us say, we say approach, we say deployment, we say E&L. Now what is this OFI saying? The OFI is saying it is not clear how senior leaders interact with the employee segments. Participation of senior leaders in the employee engagement activities is not clear. So he is giving an OFI on the approach, saying that your approach is not good. So this is an approach related OFI. अगर approach नहीं है तो deployment नहीं होगा, L&I भी नहीं होगा. So approach related OFI is a very serious OFI. And there is also one more interesting thing in this OFI. He has also written the second portion of it. हाँ ठीक है, okay. हमारा leadership जो है, they are not engaging with the employees. तो उससे क्या फर्क पड़ने वाला है? What is it that I'm losing out on? Then this is what we call as so what. The assessor is saying you are not doing this. By not doing this, you are violating your core value. Your core value, you are saying, is your leadership should demonstrate internal role model charactering. He's saying that your people are saying that they are wanting to be internal role models, which is a value. But your people are not going and meeting at all. Your leaders are not going and meeting your people. So what happened to your core value? This is what is called as the wow factor for an applicant. Whenever we are trying to give an OFI, we must tell them, one is, what is it that you are not doing? Second thing is, by not doing it, what is it that you are missing out? We are trying to talk about both of them. This is how we need to give a strength or an OFI. Or if we go a little bit deeper, again, like the previous one, approach mein we have got sound, we have also got integrated. Now, when we are saying that the participation of the senior leadership is not at all evident, it means we are trying to talk about the soundness of the employee engagement practice of the leadership is deficient. So the soundness itself is not there. So it is a very high level OFI. This is how we must write strengths and OFIs. So what I want you to do today is go back to the drawing board, go back to the template, whatever is given, whatever yesterday activity you had attempted for criterion 2, you need to redo that. You need to redo that based on the statements, whatever we have gone through. Please go through this courseware. Look at what is the quality of the statement. Look at how it has been worded, and then start trying to do this activity. I will also share a few more examples. One is from the case study and also a few more. Just give me a moment. I'm just trying to look at the file that Nagma had shared with you. Okay, first let me go through the BPCL case study and share with you as to where to find the strengths and OFIs. Then I will show you another template, right? I hope all of you are now able to see the BPCL document. I'm just sharing the BPCL document. Now let's straight away get into this criterion 2 strategy, page number 13. Now look at this, we are into criterion 2 now. Now criterion 2, the applicant has written quite a lot of things. Now when you said that BPSCL is capturing a lot of inputs from the external environment, now you can tell them what is it. Now you can also say what is the alignment of the plan. Now you have talked about macro trends. One of you have also spoken about that Sankalp. You are saying that the HR strategy is also linked to the Sankalp, which is a 5-year plan or the business plan of the organization. That is where when you are marking S and I, sound as well as integrated. So HR strategy is also in sync with Project Sankalp. Then you can tick that I also, that the HR strategy is also linked to the business strategy. Similarly, they are saying that they get information from BCG, KPMG, Hay, Ken, Gartner, CIA, Shell benchmarking. So you need to say that BPCL considers inputs from the likes of a BCG, KPMG, Ken, CIA, etc. to collect what are the changes that are happening in the external environment. Now what is it? Now many of you have spoken about that major restructuring, correct? Now you need not, just because they have talked, you don't need to talk about it. Now they have also talked about what is their L&D, what is their strategic areas. You must also talk about it. Nobody has talked about this. You need to give them a strength on the development of an HR vision with the 9 strategic themes. They have also identified what are the areas of focus. So you should give a strength on that, saying that the company has designed or has envisioned a HR strategy with 9 themes and has identified the strategy elements of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For example, you can just make 1 or 2 rough examples. You can also give another strength. You can give a strength on the scorecard. You can say that BPCL, in line with after post collecting the external inputs as well as the internal performance indicators, it has developed a HR scorecard which is aligned with the HR vision. It has also set up certain targets for that. So you can give one or two small examples of anecdotal examples of what they have given in the scorecard. Some of you have given a OFI on the risk management. Few of you have given a strength. I will leave it to you today. You relook at it. Now they are saying strategic HR area, hiring, manpower planning, succession planning. Now they are saying this is strategic HR area, but यहाँ पे तो वो है ही नहीं. They have given a different one. So you look at what you want to write, whether is it a strength or an OFI. So you can write it as it is. Then there is also on how the HR strategy formulation process has been improved. They are given something on this. So you can say whether is this good or whether is this no good. It is up to you. How do you look at it? They have said that how are they formulating the HR strategy? Who has been involved in recreating or co-creating the HR strategy? And how the union or the somebody else has been involved in some of the exercise. Now this is not, please look at this now, this is not strategy, this is only visioning. They might have given, you don't need to write anything on this. When you are writing a strength in the leadership, you can write this. But just because BPXL has given this, you don't need to write. You can pick and choose and write the ones that are appropriate. So you need to relook at whatever is there in criterion 2 and look at the criterion requirements. Thing is, आप पूरा BPCL में strategy में जो भी लिखा हुआ है वो पढ़िए. Then you look at criterion requirements क्या है 2A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You put that into 3 or 4 buckets. One is external input gathering, internal performance indicators, development of scorecard, evidence of targets and comparisons, then strategic HR elements, de-risking. Then last one is the improvement. So there are clearly 5 to 6 areas. So in few areas they might have done well, few areas they have not have done well. So based on which you can do. Similarly, look at this. यहाँ पर भी एक strength है ना. They have a corporate vision and strategy. Then they have developed a HR strategy. They have got a bottom up this thing. They have also got a top down. So that point number 4 of the HR excellence criterion, different geographical units, top down, bottom up. उसका भी these guys have done a good job on it. उस पे एक strength दीजिए. So read through the what is given and what is the requirement of the criteria, gel it, and then put across the strengths and OFIs in your own English language. आपको इसको cut copy paste नहीं करना है. You need to synthesize those statements and write it as you see and as you deem appropriate. Then it becomes a good strength and an OFI. Now let me also give you a last tip before we close for the day. When you are trying to write your strengths and OFIs, there is also one more, I would say, requirement that I want you to try out. Of course, this what I am trying to show now has got nothing to do with BPCL case study, a business excellence का case study है, but more or less it is the same. I'm only trying to give you a broad outlook of how to write a strengthened OFI. आपका approach deployment A and R के बदले में E and L है, but the mapping is more or less the same. What I want you to do is, if you are writing something, let us say for example you have written something over here. If your statement is trying to talk about approach deployment, that is SIIS, then usko green color करिए. Whatever you have written over here, then you mark it as green. अगर if you are giving something as an OFI, अगर आपका कुछ risk management में कुछ OFI है, then you can mark only those two as red. So whatever is your statement, the marking should also be aligned to it. You have that SIIS ML line, A, D, E and L. So उसके हिसाब से whatever you have written, you mark it. If what it means is whatever you have written over here, I am able to see all this. If I have given a OFI, if I have given a OFI on something, then it means that my comment is on the soundness of it. So that is how you need to attempt the exercise. So sorry for a very long monologue. I will stop for now. Any questions that you still have for you to attempt the exercise tomorrow once again? Yes, please. Any questions?
Shiva,
Yes, please.
when I was going through the document, there was too much jargonized, and there were like too many terms, and there is too up and down flow. As in, everywhere. So refer to this, refer to that kind of thing happening there. So is this a norm? I mean, is this the right way to do it when you write a document, or? I mean, I wanted to breeze through it like a story, but every time I had to go up and down because of the references, cross references given there. One, and second, they were too much jargonized. Lots and lots of jargons, lot of acronyms which they have used. I'm not sure how. So, is this the norm? Is this the correct way to do it?
Yes, it is. I think it is a fairly acceptable way. I would put it like this. Why? Because I'll give you two things. One is whether they are using the word QSEX, Project Transcend, Ascend, ESF. These are all the words or the jargons that are very specific to their environment. So they have written which initiative is connected with what, using their own jargon, they have written it. And when they have said that this is there in this criterion, aap yahan pe jaiye, you go to page 33, you go to this, it means that he is able to seamlessly go across different criterion. He is able to see many of those connections. So it is our responsibility to become a little bit familiar with the applicant's terminology and his context. So writing about the initiatives in a very specific way as they use it in their organization is perfectly permissible. And also one of the reason why I told you is you will have to go through the document yahan wahan wherever he has made a correlation, because he would have explained it the way that suits him the best. But as an assessor, we need to filter whatever is required for us, and if some information of criterion 2 is not available in criterion 2 but it is applicable, it is something in criterion 1, so as an assessor, we need to pick, choose, and then write whatever is relevant based on the criterion requirement. So it is an acceptable way of writing, not horribly wrong. But to also be a little bit critical, there are certain things which they have written which does not meet the requirements of criterion 2. For example, in involvement of the union members in visioning. If there was the involvement of the union members in HR strategy, tab likho na. Agar visioning hai to why it should come in criterion 2? That should actually go to criterion 1. But they have written one more thing. They said that they are using some people from SHRM or somebody to come and sit in their strategy meets so that they are able to give a different perspective. Ye achhi baat hai. This is a E&L portion. They are asking somebody else to come and observe their blind spots. So this becomes a good strength. This you can make use of. So there are areas where something is not applicable, they have written. There are some areas which are good. That is also there. You need to pick and choose and write it as applicable. Don't worry, because this is the first time that you are trying to do, because you are trying to understand the model, understand the criteria, read it, and also write a strength and a OFI. Thoda mushkil hai, but believe me, today when you re-attempt this exercise, you will do it in a much, much better way. So read the criterion requirements, external input gathering, internal one, development of the scorecard, then also that bottom up and the top down approach of the HR business partner, the corporate to that scorecard. So uska ek strength hoga. Then they have also given about how they are also setting up some targets and comparisons for some of the key processes. How have they linked up to the 9 themes? So wahan pe ek strength hoga. Risk management, you decide whether it is a strength or an OFI. Kuch likha hua hai. Few people say it is a strength, few people say it is an OFI. Kal dekhenge. On that there can be a strength or an OFI. And the last one is how the HR strategy has been improved. They have given 1 or 2 something that is applicable. So use your discretion and write. And आपकी जो format है उसमें there is one last column which says site visit issue. वो site visit issue क्या है? What it means is whenever you have an OFI, site में आपको जाके पूछना पड़ेगा what is this? So whom you want to ask, what you want to ask, that you write it. All the OFIs must have a site visit question. 100% of the OFIs need to be site visited. उसके साथ एक question जुड़ना ही चाहिए. So whenever you have an OFI, write a site visit question, what you want to check, with whom you would want to check, so that you can make use of it during the site visit planning. So again, just to recap, please go through the sample strengths and OFIs, whatever I have shared with you today. Same template, whatever you have, based on that sample understanding of that exercise, put across your complete thoughts, write a good paragraph on the strengths and the OFIs. Whatever you believe, whether it is sound, whether it is implemented, whether it is integrated, if your statement, if you think you have addressed it, mark it as green. अगर only L&I में OFI है, बस L&I को आप read करिए, what is the learning and improvement which you wanted them to display in the strategy, उसके बारे में you can give an OFI. So if the risk management, if the approach is not too very sound, then you can mark S&I as red, approach as red, and give an OFI only on that. So it is up to you. So I would want you to redo this exercise. Believe me, you will certainly do a very good job. Yesterday it was more about only understanding the template. Today it is a little bit slowly we are introducing you to the concept of the enabler OPEL. By trying to write it in the format and trying to mark those colors, you are trying to understand the OPEL much better. Believe me, tomorrow you will do much better than that. And after that, you will also do the result exercise also much better. Currently, kal ke liye, you please only redo the 2 criterion 2 exercise. Don't get into 6B. 6B ke liye, tomorrow I will share inputs. Today it is only the enablers. Right? So we are at 1:15. Sorry, I think I overshot by around 10-15 minutes. So thanks a lot. Any questions? I mean, the floor is open for a few more minutes, or in case if no questions, look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And again, I would want you to try out that exercise and mail me back all your observations. Right? Right then, thank you so much. Good day.